What's going on, guys? It's the Nose Bleed. We're back at it again. Another episode. Tonight, as you can see, my little counter partner here, Des, he ain't here tonight. He's actually went back home for Thanksgiving. So, he's doing his thing with his family. I'm willing to host this thing. Let's get it. What's going on, guys? It is the Nosebleed. We're back at it again. We had another big week. Week 11 was no stranger. Week 11 was real. We're going to go over some of the things that happened week 11. We're going to go over what the committee thought about. We're going to go over what's coming in week 12. Big takeaways, Ohio State, how they were able to handle Michigan State. And I'm pretty sure if you would have watched the last video when me and Des were talking about that game, I'm pretty sure we both looked at each other and one said, whoever has a strong run game is going to win that game. And awkwardly, it wasn't the leading rusher. It wasn't Kenneth Walker. It was Henderson and the Ohio State run game. They were dominant. They found ways to run the ball. That offensive line was moving that defense, and it opened up that pass game so much where you got to see all three of those receivers, which if you do not know now, if you didn't know before, you know now, Ohio State has the three best receivers in college football, hands down. Easiest comment I've ever said in my life. They have the best receivers right now. Those three receivers are better than any one receiver that's at any university right now. No cap. Not even playing with you. The team that receiving core is legit. Now, have they seen a real defense? I don't know. Maybe to come. We're gonna find out. We're gonna see. If they can hang on and we can hang on, we're going to see. But that's for later. That's for later talk. But right now, I'm going to go over Week 11's top 10 was Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Ohio State at 4, Cincy at 5. Michigan at 6, Michigan State at 7. 8 was Oklahoma State. 9 was Wake Forest. 10 was Baylor. So big things that happened in that one. Oregon. I called it in the last video. Me and Des both agreed on it. Utah showed out so much where it made it look like, why is Oregon even in the top 4? What did they do? Pause. I'll give you the answer. They beat Ohio State. When Ohio State was struggling and CJ Stroud wasn't necessarily, had his feet under him. He really wasn't entwined with the offense. He really wasn't connecting with his receivers. That's when they called Ohio State. Other than that game, what is Ohio State's biggest win? Yeah. I mean, I'm the only one talking, obviously, so I can tell you that I heard no one say anything else. So it's obvious Oregon was waiting to get knocked off, which, speaking of this next team, Cincinnati needed that. When we talked about it the last couple videos, Cincinnati needed the top 4 people to mess up, Oregon being one of them. And this week, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. The committee loved that, so it gave Cincinnati some help. Like we were talking earlier, Ohio State made Michigan State look so stupid, giving Mel Tucker that big pay raise they just gave him. But that's besides the point. Michigan State just got freaking handled, like bad. And it got ugly. The fact of the matter is, Georgia played Charleston Southern, and the score was the same versus Ohio State and Michigan State. Now, the difference between these two games is it was the number 4 team versus the number 7 team, and it was the number 1 team against a team that was getting a paycheck to show up. That is absolutely this terrible to have that happen to you. But it happened. Michigan State's on the brink. They're there. They're close to getting some things to connect together. They just got to freaking, I don't know what it is. I don't know. And I mean, this coming from a Georgia fan, I know what it's like to blow those big games. Once a year we do it. And half the time it isn't even to the best team that we play that year in a regular season game. But Michigan State had their chance and Michigan State threw it out the window. So, any other big wins or losses? Let's talk about Bama. And I'm going to hope I know I have a family member. Shouts out to my mom. She's gonna watch this part. She's gonna laugh. Alabama. How do you consistently week after week defend yourself at being at number 2? And I'm going to use this. I mean, if you've been around how Georgia thinks and how Georgia fans think, just hear me out here. Georgia, Arkansas, 37-0. 37-0. That game was over by pretty much this late second quarter, early third quarter. I'm pretty sure Arkansas put up 35 on an Alabama team that only won by a touchdown. In reality, if Arkansas gets that onside kickback, it's in the game, we might be talking about a whole nother thing here. So you're telling me the number 2 team, Alabama, the most, highly ranked collegiate level, Nick Saban, all the legends that have come out of there, struggles to an Arkansas, who, by the way, wasn't ranked. And they only got ranked this week because of a 7-point loss to Alabama. Alabama is overrated. Alabama's defense is an absolute fraudulent case here. Everyone said, I remember literally before the season started, I remember everyone, when it comes to everyone, I'm talking about all like the major broadcasts that put out, predictions of what to expect this coming year. I heard so many rumors. Alabama's defense is probably the best we've seen. This is probably going to be one of those good all-time Alabama defenses. They've got one good player, Anderson, that outside linebacker. I think he's an outside linebacker or DM. Best player they have. That's it. I don't know any other names. Really don't care to. I'll see it in 2 weeks when we show up in Atlanta. But as of right now, that's the only good guy they've got. And it looks bad. It looks bad on them. And it showed because the committee shifted them a little bit. Any other big ones? Cincinnati. We knew that they needed to win. They need to win big. They did both of those against SMU. They did good. It's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're finally catching on. Like, okay, now we understand why they keep putting us at 5 or why they keep bumping us to 6. They're recognizing. The biggest other one, everyone else pretty much won out except for Michigan State. They lost to Ohio State. Wake Forest. Me and Des saw this as an opportunity for Wake Forest to take over command of the ACC, and you failed to do so. Not only did you fail to do so, but you also got embarrassed by one of the most inconsistent and pretty much dull offenses, pretty much all in college football. Clemson's receivers looked like Clemson's receivers like last year, the year before. They showed out against Wake Forest. I was thinking Wake Forest was going to show up and say, okay, this is time for you to pass the torch. No, Clemson grabbed the torch and put them on fire, and it showed. Clemson showed out. Good thing for Clemson because they're kind of staying alive. Now they're back in the top 25 at number 25. Couldn't be me. But other than that, this week, not a whole lot of things changed. Now I'm going to go over what I thought. So a couple minutes. So I'm going to go over what I thought would be the top 6. Because let's be real here. We're in the last two weeks. Last regular season games coming up. And then we got conference championship games coming up. And my poll, I only had the top 6 because these are going to be the top 6. The top 6 is really what the contenders are. Let's be real here. Not being rude to 7, 8, or 9. But in my eyes, this is what the top 6 should have been. Georgia, 1. Georgia's defense has shown no weakness. Georgia's offense is getting stronger. Georgia's got people coming back. Blaylock, he finally came back. His first time being on the field since 2019. Humongous. Nolan Smith didn't play. It's a game that really doesn't even matter. Obviously, he's not going to play. Our right tackle, or one of our linemen, our senior lineman, he didn't play. He could have played. He could have played the last 2 weeks. He didn't play, but we really didn't need him. It's actually, if you look at it, it's a better opportunity for the next man up to get in there and get some good reps, game time reps. But beyond that, Georgia number 1. You tell me a poll that doesn't have them at number 1. Number 2, Ohio State. That win against Michigan State proved a lot. It showed that they have the best offense in the country, along with the best 3 receivers in the country. No shadow of a doubt, they have the best offense in the country. Speaks for itself. Number 3, Alabama. I feel like I'm giving them respect because they're still only a 1-loss team. They've won all but that Texas A&M game, but the thing that also helps them out is Texas A&M keeps winning their games. Texas A&M doing good, so they're going to get heat off of that as well. But they keep winning these games too close. Texas A&M that lost. Tennessee, for 3 quarters they lost that game. Tennessee just found a way to screw it up in the 4th quarter, and they ended up taking over that game. Florida, they beat Florida by 2 points. By the way, Florida lost to Missouri in overtime this past week by a touchdown. Just saying, just connecting things. Missouri was one of the, if not worst, teams in the SEC. Alabama, they're there, but their time is coming, which hopefully that team right there takes care of that in 2 weeks. And now we have another spot open. We'll see. Number 4, Cincinnati. I applaud Cincinnati because they've done exactly what they should have done. They kept their head down and kept working. It's exactly what you're supposed to do. When you're in this position, you control your fate. So how about leave no dang doubt, and you beat everyone that comes across your roster or across the field, and you beat them. It's easy. It's win. You just win. And they've done so. And they've done the last couple of games in pretty good fashion. Number 5, for me, I was going to say Michigan. Michigan's a really good team. Michigan's loss to Michigan State doesn't look as good now for Michigan State, or it doesn't look as bad for Michigan, because that Michigan State team really wasn't that good. If you look back at it, Michigan had control of that game for a large part of that game. They had control of that game. They just slipped away. Still a loss, still a valid point. They still lost, but they're sitting at number 5. They play Ohio State. What happens if Ohio State loses? They're going to swap. These next 2 weeks are going to be insane. This is my favorite time of the year because whatever you thought you knew the last couple of weeks could go straight down the door. Could go straight out the door. Legit. So Michigan sitting at 5. And my team that I think that's going to slip into there at number 6, this is my 6, Oklahoma State. They play Oklahoma, and they have a chance to play another team in that conference championship game, and they're 1 loss. If they win out and win that conference, I don't know. They're gonna have to shift some things around. Let's say Alabama loses or Ohio State loses, or let's say both of them lose. Sheesh, this top 4 is fixing to look interesting. That was mine. So I've got Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, Alabama at 3, Cincy at 4, Michigan at 5, Oklahoma State at 6. The playoff committee, their top 6. Georgia, obviously. Like I said before, Georgia's hands down it's a no-brainer. Ohio State, number 2. Makes sense. Their offense is good. They're doing well. Alabama at 3, like we predicted. Their defense is a freaking It's a reason to look at them and say maybe you're not in that top 2. Maybe that gap is even bigger between the top tier teams and Alabama. Cincy at 4, we predicted it. They did good. They were doing what they're supposed to do. These next two are kind of I wouldn't say too far off from mine, but there's a different team in here. They put Notre Dame at 5. And I wish I had Des to sit across the screen and look at when I told him this. They put Notre Dame at 5. Yes, they've won some good games. They've continued what they're supposed to do. This is a team that almost lost to Florida State. No offense, Des. I know he's going to watch this video. I know he's going to look over this, and he's going to look at this segment, and he's going to come at me. Des, I'm looking at you, Des. This is just me and you talking, my friend. Me and you talking. They almost lost to y'all. We know who you lost to. We're not going to say the name. But they put Notre Dame at 5. I don't know what it is around this time of year, but the playoff committee loves Notre Dame. They love them. Look at the past couple of years. Oh, let's sneak Notre Dame at 4. Let's throw them in there. Let's throw them in there. What happens to them in the first round of the playoff? What happens? Interesting. Just saying, weird placement, but I understand why they did it. Notre Dame's on a good run. They're doing well. Number 6, Michigan. I think that's right. They're putting Michigan in the spot where they can either excel or they can fall out. Win this game against Ohio State, you're probably going to book a ticket. You might as well go ahead and get your bags ready, get your mind right. Only team that I don't see in their top 6 that I wish was in it was Oklahoma State. I feel like Oklahoma State's a really good team. They're a really good team. So now we're going to go over some of the games and some of the things to watch for. So I know for sure we've got the most obvious. We've got Ohio State and Michigan playing each other. That's going to be a really good game. I love that game because it means a lot to both of those teams. So it's make or break. Those games are huge. That game is going to be absolutely humongous. Because it means so freaking much. If Ohio State wins that game, sheesh. Ohio State wins that game, they're for sure locked in at number 2. I don't see them jumping Georgia. If they do jump Georgia, I'd be surprised. But who knows? I feel like Georgia's beaten more ranked opponents than Ohio State has. But I don't know. Obviously, we don't know the committee. They keep sneaking, for some reason, they keep sneaking Notre Dame into the top 10 every single time when it comes down to these times. But that's not, it's not my job. Ohio State, Michigan, it's going to be the same way. Michigan's got the right players to compete with this type of team. Only question is, do they got the secondary to compete with this team? I don't know. I haven't seen a team to do it yet. That's a fact. I have not seen a team do it yet. So let's look at the next game. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. We've already really touched on it earlier when I was talking about Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has a chance. If they win out and they do their job against Oklahoma at Bedlam, I don't know how they keep Oklahoma State out. And that's my opinion. I don't know how they keep them out. I think this is a really good team. They've proved well. They've done successful. They lost one game. I'm trying to see. I'm gonna have to see who they lost to. They dropped one game. I want to say it was early in the season. But let me see. Let me see if I can find who they dropped that game to. They lost to Iowa State. Iowa State's not a bad team. I mean, they only lost by 3 points. But if you look at everyone else that they played, Kansas 55-3, West Virginia 24-3, TCU 63-17, Texas Tech 23-0. That's a good freaking team. I mean, Iowa State almost beat Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma won by 7. But you look at Kansas, 35-3. They barely beat Kansas. 52-21, good score. TCU 52-31. Oklahoma's won some good games too. They lost to Baylor, but they've had some good games, and they just dropped that one to Baylor, and it's going to cost them. That should be a good game. Oklahoma State's opportunity to really get themselves into a situation where they can be in the top 4 is this week. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have to. Last game before I have my sleepers that I go off of. Oregon versus Oregon State. I feel like Oregon has successfully screwed the Pac-12 out of making it to the playoff. Relevancy for the Pac-12 is out the window. Even though, mark my word, that Utah team ain't nothing to play with. I think it's been the last couple of years Utah's been legit. But the Pac-12 just consistently gets screwed over because their top seed team loses. They just lose. Is it right? Probably not, but they do. Yeah, Oregon State versus Oregon. Oregon needs to win out. if Oregon wants to make it to those New Year's Six bowls, they need to win out. They need to finish out the season strong. If not, they're going to slip. Sleeper games. Let me see what we got here. We got the good old Ole Miss Mississippi State game. That game's probably going to be fired up. Those are actually two decent teams. I think Ole Miss is probably a little bit stronger than them this year. I feel like Ole Miss will win that game. Let me give you two games that we haven't talked about already that you should watch out for. Let's see what we got. Boom. Found one. South Carolina versus Clemson. I think South Carolina wins this game. South Carolina is not a bad team. Beamer, that head coach they got there, he has turned that team around. Yes, they got 5 losses, but they also play in the SEC. They also play Texas A&M. They also play Auburn. They also play Georgia. They also play Florida. They also play Tennessee. They play all these really well-known teams and pretty good teams. I think, in all honesty, I think South Carolina might pull this one off. Yes, I know, their defense is really good, but I don't know. I got a feeling South Carolina can win this game. I know the point spread is probably lopsided right now. I mean, let me look at the spread here. It's got Clemson by 11.5, which isn't that great. Let's look at the last 5 games. Okay, so last 5 games, South Carolina beat Auburn, lost to Missouri. That looks terrible. Beat Florida. Florida's just falling apart. Lost to Texas A&M. Texas A&M's in the top 15. Good team. And they beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not that great, and they only beat them by 1 point. But I just feel like this is one of those rivalry games that every team brings a little more juice when it comes to these type of games. Clemson pretty much won all their games except for Pitt in the last 5 games. Yeah, it's 10:10 over here, West Coast time. I'm a little tired, so I apologize. But Clemson, they're not bad. I feel like they had the problems at the worst time of the year because they had a lot of good games at the beginning of their schedule that would determine how their year would go. I mean, it starts from game 1, which, in all honesty, that game wasn't bad against us. Against Georgia, that was not a bad game. They only lost by 3 points. But how they lost, it looked like there was a freaking gap. Their offense was nothing. But it is what it is. I feel like I want to say South Carolina has an opportunity to win that game. South Carolina can win that game if they bring the energy that they should bring. I'll give y'all one more sleeper before I get out of here. Let's see. Who should I go with? Oh no, this week is kind of weird. Because I mean, there's rivalry games, but there's not games. I would have said Auburn versus Alabama, but Auburn just lost to South Carolina. One more game. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna say Nebraska versus Iowa. Nebraska, and I've listened around and I've talked to other people and I've heard their kind of synopsis on how they feel like about Nebraska. Nebraska is the worst team in college football right now. They've only won like 3 or 4 games, but somehow, some way, they're still doing really well. I think Nebraska beats Iowa. Iowa fell off. They haven't been doing so well. Their defense have kind of slipped. I think Nebraska can win that ball game. In all honesty, I feel like Nebraska can win that ball game. I think that'll be Nebraska's game that they kind of like, hey, we got this. And Iowa's only favored by 1.5 points. So, yeah, I'm taking Nebraska. Quote me, whatever you want to do. I'm taking Nebraska during that game. But it is what it is. We will see. Other than that, guys, that's it for me tonight. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. We post a video pretty much every single time one of the committees drop their poll on like Tuesday night, or we run it into Wednesday. And we kind of just talk about past week stuff and this week stuff. But if you want other content out of us, let us know. Drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you want us to go from here. Me and him both started this channel with an open mindset of going in whatever direction we feel like we could go in. And right now we feel like we're enjoying this. We're getting a little bit of views here and there. It's not even about the views. It's about what we enjoy doing, and it's talking about football. So if you have anything else for us, drop a comment. Let us know. Other than that, we're out of here. Peace.